Hey, everybody, welcome to Pink Shade. It is Thursday, so that means it's Pop and Bravo, and I'm here with my buddy, Ryan Bailey, to
Wait, you
chat.
just said you just said Thursday, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Thursday!" And I realized we're recording on Wednesday. You're releasing on Thursday. Okay, I
Ryan,
just got you. Just put the fear of God. I was like, "Oh no, I've got to be somewhere else right now."
Ryan, do you remember one time? This was last year, I think. It was about a year and a half ago. And I sent you, we planned to record. I sent you the stuff,
Yeah.
and then I labeled the recording as the day for it was like a Wednesday, but it was for Thursday. And you literally sent me a text and said, I just logged on. And I was like, it was like 5 minutes early. And
Yeah.
I go, oh, yeah, I'm on my way. And you wrote back, oh, shit, I see that now. This is for tomorrow. So sorry, I got it wrong. Talk to you tomorrow. And I was like, whoa, no.
We're going 80 miles an hour here all the time.
I was like,
So, and I get things wrong all the time, and I'm always willing to take the blame for what, even if I'm not the one wrong. I'm like, okay, my fault, totally my fault. Yeah.
bye. I'll see you through
Yeah.
3 days from now. Bye. And I was like, oh my God, no. And so then if you noticed, I labeled this episode Ryan Bailey in parentheses
February.
so that you wouldn't think we're supposed to record on February 13th.
See, but you're funny. You put February 13th episode like I would know what date it is today. Like I don't even know. Like you could have said it was Thursday, I would have believed it. You could have said it was like the 15th, I would have believed you. I mean, I don't know what part of the year I'm guessing we're still in February, right?
It's still February.
Okay.
And the reason I know this is because Friday is February 14th. And I only know that not because I celebrate Valentine's, but because Love is Blind drops.
Oh God, you got 6 episodes releasing on Friday, right? And
I do. I'm releasing 6 episodes on Friday.
Oh, see, I don't cover that show, but I watch it, and even that is just 6 episodes. Knowing that I'm going to have to watch 6 episodes, and those are the best episodes. Those first episodes to me.
I've watched them all, and you are going to, in the words of Jess, need an EpiPen to open your airways. It is so good.
Well, if I need an EpiPen, I might not watch. I can't afford another like health mishap or something like that. Sounds insane. But I'm excited. Those are my favorite things when they're in the pods, and I've always pushed for Netflix to release just unedited pod time. Like I want to see I want to see the awkward silences.
Yeah.
I want all of it, and I feel like. And sometimes I'll say that, and then like we'll get like a Salt Lake. They'll do an extended version, and I'm like, oh yeah, we didn't need this stuff at all. But I think there's like with Love Is Blind particularly, wouldn't you love to know how long they sit in awkward silence at parts?
Yes, because we get hints where towards I think this is maybe episode 4 or 5 when they say, well, we kind of have 2 days to figure it out, which means they're on day 8. And that's sort of a hint of, because it's 10 days in the pods. And then something else I noticed was because Netflix sends the, when you get the screeners, they send all the press stuff, right? So they send the full body shots and it'll say, this is Madison. She's an artist. She likes blah, blah, blah. And so in all those headshots, and there's 32 of them, 32 people that you see the outfits that they're wearing. And then what I noticed was, on the show, that's the outfit they're wearing in the first day of the pods. So they did first day of the pods and made them do like full stand-up shots and like talking head. I was like, "Ooh, that first day was rough." The first day was rough.
Gosh.
And I think they had to go in and meet everybody.
Yeah. There's 32 and then you don't know like who to pay attention to. Like there are certain people that you love that don't make it past like a certain round. And it's like so many people. And then with Love Is Blind is interesting because with like Bravo, you get to follow these characters like ideally for multiple seasons. But Love Is Blind, these people are in and out of our lives so quickly. And they're like, it's like a shooting star. It's like burns bright. You get 3 weeks with these people and you're like so into it. And then all of a sudden I watched all of last season. I don't think I could tell you one of the names right now. Like I don't think I could access what I actually watched. But for that 3-week period, you're obsessed.
Well, you could remember Tyler and Ashley because they're already getting divorced because remember, he forgot to tell her he had 3 children.
Okay, now I'm remembering.
Yeah. He forgot about that.
Yeah.
You could remember Ramses with the prince.
Yes.
Look like Prince.
Okay, it's all, as Celine Dion says, it's all coming back to me. Yes.
And then of course, don't forget Leo, my local guy. Leo, the with the Rolex.
Oh, yes. The nice watch guy, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he date somebody else recently in a reality show, like some reality star?
Ali Zarin.
Oh, Jill Zarin's daughter.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. It all comes back to Bravo.
Yes, it does. But Ryan, he's a member of my country club.
Wow, you're a member of a country club?
Listen,
That's
I don't want to
amazing.
listen, you buried the lead. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just saying he's a member. And when he said, I just literally, once I figured out his last name, I just did a quick Google. He popped up as a member of the club. I went into his profile, got his address. I know exactly where he lives. He lives across from our social Safeway, right in Old Town. And the house was bought in 1987, so it's his parents' house. And
By the way, I got all his tax filings. I got his court documents. I love you. I did a quick Google search. Did you talk to him on the show yet? Did you say I know where you live?
no, I never talked to anybody on that show, but he was at our country club's New Year's Eve event with a bunch of old people, like a bunch of everybody there was in their 80s. Yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder
Yeah.
why he chose to spend New Year's Eve there.
He then went out he was with some other Love is Blind cast members because he posted about that. And I was like, okay, so he did a free drinks at the club and
Oh,
loaded up on appetizers, for the $40 or whatever you paid for the event. And then he went out with some Love is Blind people and they just got
wow.
real, crunk up in the club.
Crunk up in the club. Amazing. Amazing. Also, did you call it the social Safeway?
Yeah, we have a Safeway in Old Town. We call it the Social Safeway.
Is that where you just go to kibitz and like talk and stuff like that? And there's a Safeway that you just go for shopping, and then this one is more for pleasure.
I think they call it the Social Safeway because it's very small and it's right in Old Town Alexandria. So most people are kind of walking there because they're in the neighborhood. They're the Old Town grocery store. And so I think they call it the Social Safeway because you're like, hey girl, like you're seeing people in the aisles that you know. And like my Safeway, I never see anybody I know because I'm a little further out in the burbs.
Oh gosh,
Social
that's amazing.
Safeway. Yeah.
Oh, I feel like this is like a reality show meant to happen in your town.
Yeah, they should do Real Housewives of Old Town Alexandria. You get some real bougie shit going on here.
Oh
Yeah.
God, well,
I'm just trying to
amazing.
be a part of it, Um,
You're in.
I'm in. I'm in. I'm in the country club. Yeah. We joined a long time ago and it's right down the street from us. And every time they do they're like, oh, we're going to update this building, whatever, you're getting assessed. We're like, is now the time we drop the country club? Do we care about more pickleball courts when we don't play pickleball? Although I feel like I should play pickleball. Do you play
Yeah, I
pickleball?
feel like I don't pickleball, but I feel like it's one of those things that I should start looking into pickleballing as I get older. Like maybe that's just
Yeah,
a way to slowly move my body. I don't know.
I think so too. And also mahjong is a big thing that people are
I've played
doing.
mahjong before. I've done
And
mahjong.
I feel like it's a lot of math and I can't brain
It's like a
doesn't
lot of
do.
pattern recognition and things like that. But it's like I in another life, like a decade ago, I used to play with a bunch of older women,
Yeah.
and it was I
That's
mean, it was actually pretty fun, and they were
that's on
like they knew
par.
their stuff, and you had to join like the national mahjong league. I remember, or I
Really?
was like a part of like the national league for like a year or something, and you got like
Really?
a little thing in the mail. Yeah,
Oh, is
love
that like
mahjong.
being like when you play tennis and you remember the USTA and you're like, me and Serena Williams, USTA.
Yeah,
Is it like
exactly,
that?
exactly, exactly. Yes, yeah.
All right. Speaking of Serena Williams, let's talk about the Super Bowl halftime show. You've probably already covered this over on So Bad It's
Yeah.
Good. Um, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I loved while I was watching it, I was saying to my husband, who was barely paying attention and I was glued. I was like, there's got to be some symbolism to
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, look at the stage. Look at the
Well,
stage. And
it was a game controller, it was
yeah,
like in the shape of like
Xbox
a video game
controller.
controller,
Yeah.
and that way when in the audience it lit up at the end like game over. I think
Yes. Uh-huh.
there were all these like little elements to it, like the flag in the beginning. I mean, there's
Hmm.
so many symbolic things that I think, there were so many Easter eggs that you could go back and watch, and like Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle
Hmm.
Sam, and
Yep.
all of these. I mean, just all the details were really amazing. But the casual football fan is not like they're going, oh, interesting symbolism. Like they're like
No.
drunk and like me, I ate so much cheese dip that day. I was like in massive pain. But it was so funny because it's one of those things you can go back and watch and go, oh, there was so much effort put into this and so many little moments that you can go back. But
Yeah.
it is funny because, you just imagine the people there, they're just drunk. They don't know what they're seeing. They're looking to hear the Drake song, not like us. They're
Yeah.
looking to
Yeah.
hear something like familiar, and they're not looking to like, well, that's very interesting. It talks about race relations in America. They're
Right.
not doing that.
I know, but we talked about it the next day, which is important, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you hope, I would imagine, if you're an artist, and especially if somebody, Kendrick Lamar, I mean, he won the Pulitzer Prize, for God's sakes,
I
in the
know.
past. So this is like truly like a level of artistry that I think a lot of people appreciate, but so many people don't. And I'm down for that. But it's also then you have to, what I find disappointing, and that's why social media sometimes is like, you know, good and really bad, is that you have to, oh, I hate this. This is horrible. Who put this guy on here? I didn't know one song. And everybody has a voice now. And sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't have this much of a voice.
Let me ask you this. Are you still on Twitter?
You know,
Because you used to be, you used to
I
really,
used to be okay,
really
so
on Twitter.
I dipped out, as Tom Sandoval would say,
Yeah.
around the election, or like right after the election. And the thing
This
was,
one, this current election.
this yeah, the car, yeah, no, yeah, 1916, I dipped out. No, this one, because it was just, you know, I know you can do like just people you follow, but for some reason it just kept showing me so much hate. And like
Yeah.
I don't begrudge anybody. Like that's, you know, people have built up audiences. It's where I would go just to make stupid Bravo jokes most of the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
But also there was like a level of, I think, anger I had about certain things that would just get exacerbated by other people's opinions on there.
Yeah.
And it really kind of scared me. Like it really scared me when I was like, God, this is a step above where it's actually getting me more scared about the world. And so I've like checked in from time to time, or like, you know, I'll do a tweet here and there, or even just by force of habit, I found. And then, but it's, you know, Elon Musk is a very divisive figure. And you know, I'm somebody that like, I've read a lot about Elon over the years. I thought there was a great biography about him by Walter Isaacson, who's a fantastic writer. And I just, I find it so bizarre that he is so in our government now, but also gets to own a social media platform, which he posts, what I call shit posting. He shit posts. Like, I mean, it's really just a very different time than ever before in terms of where we're at. And so for me personally, it got scary. It wasn't nearly as fun as it used to be. So I'll be on there. But also then, like, if I was on there last night and I ended up posting like 3 stupid jokes about Elon, and I was like, oh, this isn't healthy. This is not healthy when I just want to post like summer house memes.
You just want to like poke the bear, and you're like, I just want to talk about Craig and Paige or whatever.
Exactly. Well, that's kind of what it was always initially for, some kind of stupid observation. And to me, Twitter was always like a drafts folder anyways. Like I'll just put out my dumb thoughts without thinking about them. But if I get angrier, it's not the place that I just want to like kind of vomit all of my emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just wondering because a lot of people are off of it, and I want to be off of it, but it's like, oh my God, that's going to require me to like watch a YouTube video to figure out how to like, because there's a YouTube video that tells you how to put those people over to Blue Sky.
Oh,
And
really? See that?
yeah.
Already you've lost me. Like I'm like this. I have all of these accounts, but I found like with social, I talk about this on the show, but even like I can do the podcast still and try to find joy in that and like a lot of like laughter and things. But even with Instagram, I think it's just, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, there is this thing about these tech billionaires. I find it very hard, even with Meta and Mark Zuckerberg. Like sometimes I'll go on Instagram and it's not the same joy that I used to have on Instagram. So part of that also is like, I just felt like I've lost my sense of humor in certain ways over the last couple of months. And, you know, Instagram especially was like, oh man, that was like my safe space. It was so fun. And I'll get on there now and I can't think of a stupid meme to save my life. And then I'll think of one and then I'll see something horrifying happen in the world. And I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Like, it's a weird time to be in right now.
It's a weird time to be in. And I think a lot of listeners or watchers of our reality shows or listeners to podcasts to go along with your reality shows, I think a lot of them are like, please do not talk about politics. Do not like, I need to go and watch my shows and then I need to listen to you talk about it. And please just be funny. And I'm like, I'm trying so hard.
Well, yeah. And by the way, sorry, guys, I'm sure you might be rolling your eyes right now, certain people, but it is one of those things is that you do this day in, day out. And at some point, like I had a breaking point on Monday's episode where it was like, we had recorded on Saturday, and it was when Kanye was going into his like deep mental crisis on Twitter again.
Yeah,
And I was just like,
right. Mhm.
it was a breaking point for me again, where I was like, come on, man, if we can't even agree on these simple things of like, hey, let's not sell a Nazi symbol and then advertise it on Twitter, like these simple things we can't agree on, which are
Yeah.
just obvious. It was so I totally get that. And I don't ever want to make my show, it's not a political show at all, but you can't help but have it bleed in because we're actual people as well.
Yeah. Speaking of Kanye, let me tell you this. Today I was down in my kitchen. I'm making my breakfast, whatever, and I get a text from John Hill, and he's a mutual friend of both of ours,
Yeah.
and very smart guy.
Great
And
guy.
I get a text from John Hill. It says, "Girl, please stop following Kanye." I was
Oh,
like,
you were following.
I literally wrote back. I literally, like, in the middle of doing my eggs, I turned off the stove and I'm like, wait, what? Which account? What are you talking about? Because I think John follows me on both, like, my personal and my
Yeah.
pink shade. And I go, oh my God. So I went and like looked up Kanye on both accounts, wasn't following. I was like looking up Yeezy, whatever. You have to literally type in YE or it won't pop up. It won't pop up with Kanye. It won't. So I
Oh,
was just typing in Kanye thinking it would pop up. So I was
yeah.
like, I don't see it. Oh my God. When I tell you it was a full 5-minute panic.
Yeah.
And so then I went, I was like, oh shit, it was on the Pink Shade account. So I unfollowed quickly. And then I looked, I was like, 77 people that I know
Yeah, right.
following Kanye. So I texted two 90-Day Fiance people, Kimberly of Kimberly and Usman,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Emily of Emily and Kobe. I have both of their texts, and I texted both of them. I go, y'all, you're following Kanye West. And Emily wrote back, I don't follow social media. What do I do? And I said, he's selling Nazi shirts. She goes, oh my God. And she unfollowed
Oh,
him.
oh
And
my.
then Kimberly wrote back and said, done, unfollowed him.
Well, and that's
But
you can't.
they didn't
You,
know. I didn't
but
know.
you can't like. I mean, I can't remember everybody I've followed through the years. I can't remember, and like half of the times, like you don't really see those things, or like I
No,
don't
I don't
see.
see
But
that.
like the Twitter, it was everywhere with him. Like I saw that, like it
Yeah.
was just pushed into my Twitter feed, and it was so alarming. But it was like not funny. But today or yesterday, it was like Kanye's talent agent dropped him, and I'm like, how did this man still have a talent agent at this point? Like it's not like this is. He's had multiple outbursts that have been in this kind of vein. So I was like,
Yeah.
wait, you drop him now? Like he's done this repeatedly over the last couple of years. It's just that we are in more of a pressure bubble with society right now. So I think it really just kind of was glaring. And especially with Elon in our government, this is his platform. And I don't know. Anyway, sorry, this is not Bravo, but
No,
yeah.
but it's crazy. But what do you think, like Kim Kardashian? Like, what do you think she's like?
Woo!
She's like, now I actually have to go to court because
Well, it's
now I
hard, right?
actually
Because
have to keep him away from my children, like legally,
here's
right?
another billionaire, right? So there's so many things at play, and whether you like it or not, Kim Kardashian does play into like geopolitical like conversations now
Mhm.
because she's a billionaire. She eventually will run for office one day, whether anybody likes that or not. She will. You can already see like those kind of like rumblings happening, and so she's got to play things really carefully. On top of, I'm sure she loves her kids with everything in her. How do you? But at the same time, it's like this sounds so cold, but you get what you paid for. Like
Mm.
she knew aspects of Kanye back then, and especially throughout their relationship, just following the
Mhm.
Kardashians for so long, that this man can be very troubled. And I have to keep telling myself it's mental illness to
Yeah,
try
it is.
to make an excuse for him. But at a
Right.
certain point, I don't, it's like a mental illness with this much power and this much influence and money is really hard. And Kim, she's been, I don't want to say classy, but she's kept it out of the press. But I would really love
Right.
to know behind the scenes. And they don't have these conversations on the actual Kardashians reality show. Like they'll sometimes allude to it, but there's
Will
not this
they?
deep
Yeah.
conversation. But it's really, I mean, I would imagine it's very scary for her.
Very scary. I've never watched one episode of the Kardashians, yet I know everything about it. It's the same as like Sister Wives, right? Never watched a full episode, know every single player.
Yeah.
Like, and you're getting into like Summer House is starting, never watched one
Yeah.
episode, know everything about it.
You've never watched an episode of Summer House? Are you going to start this season? Because, by the way,
No.
this is Thursday that you'll hear this. So the season premiere of Summer House was Wednesday night.
Yeah, I know. No, I have no plans to watch it. And also,
Wow.
you know what else I don't watch? This is like Deep Confessions by Mary Payne. I also have never watched Southern Hospitality, and I'm also not going to start.
I really love Southern Hospitality this season. That's gotten better and better each season. And if you're looking for something to scratch like a Vanderpump Rules itch, I think that's the
Uh,
show to go to. It's a lot of young energy of, like everything like life or death, but it's like very small like stakes.
yeah.
And they're not famous yet still. So I kind of like that they are not at that Jackson Stassi level. So it's like this really nice under the radar show that I hope keeps getting more popular.
Mm.
But I'll give your listeners might watch Summer House. And so this is something I can tell you first. When is this getting released? At midnight tonight?
Thursday morning. Yeah. Hmm.
Thursday morning. So tonight on Summer, sorry, I watched the episode already. And at the
Hmm.
very end, they pick up cameras after the Craig and Paige breakup. And there's a line in there that
Wait,
they
that's on
leave
Summer House. I thought that was going to be on Southern Charm. It's going to be on Summer House?
both. They picked up
Both.
cameras for both Southern
Okay.
Hospitality and Southern Charm. Or sorry, Southern Charm and Summer House. So
And is it two different things that we're
two
seeing?
different two different things. So they picked up
Okay.
cameras for Southern Charm to have Craig talk with Shep and Austin, and we saw
Okay.
that last week in the midseason trailer.
Okay.
But for Summer House, they picked up cameras as well after the Craig and Paige breakup. So they include this tiny scene at the very last, like it's like a Marvel's in credit scene where they
Uh-huh.
pick up, and it's Paige talking to Amanda Batula and Lindsay Hubbard, who is milking her breasts at the time, which is like
Sure.
very funny moment. And then Paige says, "Oh, he wants to paint me out to be the villain. I caught him talking to two girls during the course of our relationship. Something to the fact that he was messing around potentially with other girls, but." So that's going to be a big moment because
Yeah.
everybody's so into the Craig and Paige stuff right now. And this is
Right.
just going to fuel that fire because there's been all of these things. Did Paige cheat? Which I don't think she did. But there's all of this stuff. And now this will add a whole nother level of conversation is did Craig do Paige wrong? But Bravo is known to do this, you guys, is that they'll throw out a little clip like that in a preview for the season or even in Salt Lake City at the reunion. Remember Seth Marks Andy was like, "Do you have a side chick in Ohio, Seth?" And they used it in all the previews. And I was like,
Right.
"Oh my God, Seth Marks cheated on Meredith Marks." And then the actual moment happened and it was just nothing. It was like,
He was like,
my
"It's my hand."
Yeah.
Oh.
And it was like, I got two of them, man. Like there was no moment there. So
Yeah.
maybe this is just something innocuous, but they have to know if they put that out there, the fan base will ignite because
Yeah.
people want to make this a Scandal level event.
You know what I think with the and I'm not like super familiar with Paige. I'm mostly familiar with Paige from being on Southern Charm with Craig, and I understand everybody loves her. Like my niece, who's like in her 30s, loves that giggly squad, and so it's
Yeah,
just maybe not of
huge.
maybe it's just like not of my age range. I don't know. So I understand, and I mean I think Paige is great. I have nothing, whatever. I think that these are two people in their 30s who dated for 2.5 years, and it didn't work out. And then they'll marry the next person probably. And that's just how it goes.
Well,
I don't
and
think
also
it's like a big
there's an
tragedy.
age difference. Like Craig
Yeah.
actually is like I think in his early 40s, so there was like a 10-year age gap if I'm not mistaken, or an age gap
Mhm.
definitely. And yeah, like 3 years, like you want different things at a certain point, and I think Craig wanted to settle down, and I think her career is on fire, and I
Right.
think I think they were in love. I don't think there was anything. Like technically, she broke up with him, and she might be seeing another person now, casually, whatever. But that's her right. Like
Yeah.
she can do whatever she wants, and like
Right.
that is like Paige is not in the wrong here, and you can have empathy for Craig, and we've all had our heart broken or we've broken somebody's heart, and
Yeah.
that's just unfortunate. Like I love that we all walk around like we've never been in a situation like this, or we've never like you've all had a first boyfriend or girlfriend
Yeah.
that didn't work. Like we've all been in this situation. The difference is we're not on reality television, and like could you imagine, Mary Payne, if you had a podcast made about your relationship? Could you
Oh,
imagine?
God.
Like it would be all you would be like, what? I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they signed up for it. But I
Mhm.
imagine in times like this, it just makes everything that much worse.
Yeah, I think you're right. And yeah, I'm just sort of like, I've got no skin in this game. I think they just broke up and that's what
I
happens. I
know.
don't really care. But I guess, Craig is such a sympathetic, sweet, like, oh, sweet little Craig. But then, of course, you see all these flashbacks. When they did the flashbacks, so when she goes, you should give me the same grace that you had when you were 31. And they do all those flashbacks of Adderall fueled, cracked out
Oh,
Craig. lying about going to law school, like lying about passing the bar.
And still he's lying about lying. He lied to Annie. He said, I've never lied on this show. Even after they showed that whole troll of all the times he's lied, he still says, no, I've never lied. So I'm like, how does this guy rationalize this to himself when he has all this proof that he actually did lie?
Because he's like sober and clear now. So he's like, well, that was old me. New me, sober and clear businessman making business deals, does not lie, you know?
Which by the way, you know, and like hats off to Craig, like being one of the only people, like one of the only men on Bravo to actually work on themselves in some capacity. Right. So like there is this element of watching this show for so long where you're like, oh, I am proud of Craig. And like you can see where this relationship was good for him. And I'm just curious, like, because my feeling is, with Paige, this isn't a knock on Paige, but I have a feeling Craig, like I just get scared Paige is going to be Craig's Moby Dick for the rest of his life. Like he's going to be like, oh my God, like every woman will now be compared to Paige. He like, even if he settles down with somebody, it's never going to be Paige. And maybe this is just me putting that onto him and that doesn't exist at all. But I feel like Paige is of the sort of like, loved him, you know, great. Now it's turning out to be bad, but I feel like she is so strong that she is able to move on in a way different way than Craig will ever be.
Everybody's like, what about Nomi? Can we bring back Nomi?
Oh God.
God. Well,
by the way, Nomi had issues too. We saw her on the show, and she had her own, like the Craig relationship was wild, but he seems to pick these really strong women that eventually just start making fun of him, and he likes it. Like, you know.
I know. Oh, sweet Craig. Listen, he will be engaged to somebody else in 1 year. Dude, within 1 year.
He has men and women just throwing themselves at it. Like there's no issue of like, well, the poor guy will never be able to like sleep with anybody again. Or
I know.
Like, no, that's
chance.
Not an issue. I just feel emotionally that's where the work is going to have to be done for him.
Oh, Craig. Are you going to watch Yellowjackets and White Lotus?
White Lotus, both of those definitely, but I am less excited for Yellowjackets. I thought they had one of the strongest first seasons of a television show in so long, and the second season, and I know people that work on this that are so amazing, but the second season just did not. It really kind of ruined the mythology of what they had built in the first season, and I was so bummed. Hopefully they can pick it back up in the third season, but there is this kind of initial magic that like has worn off for me with Yellowjackets, whereas White Lotus, I felt had two amazing seasons back to back. And listen, they might have a weaker season this season, but I'm more excited to watch White Lotus. But like, dude, I'm going to even watch the Baldwins on TLC. So I'm watching everything.
I watch everything. I'm going to cover the Baldwins. Literally, like I just told Kimberly of A Date with Dateline, who I record with on Mondays. I said, we're going to get these screeners, and on Mondays we'll do our regular 90-day, and then we're literally at the end going to do a separate like 15-minute recap of the Baldwins, and it'll go out every Tuesday. And she's like, do I have to? I said, yes, I'm paying you. You have to. Yes.
I just wonder with the Baldwins, like how, I mean, obviously the edit is going to be so extremely kind to them, but I wonder if you'll get any kind of Alec being mad moments, because he can be really gruff. And I wonder if they'll catch any of those. And then I was thinking, if TLC has any press events, I would give anything in my life to have Cody from Sister Wives and Alec Baldwin meet. Like to have those two men meet and have a conversation would just be, I mean, by the way, and if that happens, we know we've reached the apocalypse. That's one of the signs of the apocalypse.
And then it'll be on Twitter and we know it's over. It's all over for us.
Yeah, or like Big Ed's hanging out with Alec Baldwin and stuff. Like it'll be wild.
Oh no, bless. Okay, and opinions on, because we're doing pop culture, you got opinions on Blake and Justin. Are we already so sick of it? And the trial is next year.
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about right now.
No, you know nothing.
Real quick, Mary Beth, I want to, are you watching Severance?
Listen, I'm not watching Severance.
Oh.
I've heard it's so great.
Favorite
and I've
show on TV.
And I've heard that if I just go ahead and quickly watch all of season 1 and then roll into season 2, it'll make sense, because people that the break between 1 and 2, people aren't getting what's happening in 2 because it was so long ago since 1.
There was a multi-year break, but like I went back and rewatched the first season, which I loved initially. But here is a show, unlike Yellowjackets, where the second season is as strong, if not stronger, than the first season. But you don't have to watch it like right now, but at some point, do yourself a favor and just start watching like it's really excellent television.
Okay.
It is my favorite show on TV by far right now, and that includes reality television.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and as Justin and Blake, it's
Yeah.
I
How did you
see.
get from Justin and Blake to that?
Well, because we were talking about TV shows, and I was like, oh, I wanted to tell you about that
Okay.
show if you were
Okay.
asking about these,
Okay.
But the Justin and Blake stuff, I get why people are fascinated, and I've covered it. I've not covered it with the intensity of some of my, peers in the podcast industry, because I just don't think I could make my show that every day. Like it's so
Yeah.
like it's fascinating to get the behind the scenes and to have all of these emails and text messages like leaked in these court documents. So there's this element of voyeur, and especially what goes on behind closed doors in
Yeah.
Hollywood. But the
Mm-hmm.
other thing, though, that I didn't think I was studying pop culture, but I've loved pop culture since I was a little kid. And these things, maybe not at this level, but you can throw a rock and hit like a Hollywood scandal like that. Like there are so many things of men trying to take over movie sets. There are so many things. And my thing is, like, when the initial Blake Lively stuff happened at the end of December of 2024, I thought, wow, Justin Baldoni completely at fault. Really weird. This is, because it was so factual. I thought it all made sense. The New York Times article made sense. But then Baldoni comes out with, and they have an answer for every one of those complaint points. And I was like, well, this makes a lot of sense too. But on top of it, they're winning the social media game. They're winning, like, they're out there, like, every day they have a new clip to release of Blake Lively. They have a new clip to support their cause. But it's like I always say, that's that pendulum that swings backwards and forwards. And I got caught in that pendulum at first because I was like, this Blake Lively stuff really makes sense. And
Yeah.
of course, we cover things on a day-to-day basis. So you can't wait for the Baldoni stuff to come out. And then it did. And I was like, oh, wow, this adds a whole nother level to it. But we are going to have an answer from Blake Lively at some point too, because they are saying they are still fighting this. They are still saying that they hold true with this sexual harassment claim and all of this. So I am really curious to hear her next filing or read her next filing, because I don't want to, like, right now it looks very bad for her in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But
And her
it's
husband too.
Oh yeah, but it's already changed once, so there might be more information. They might be playing a more of a, not strategic game, but more of a letting the courts decide, and we have this information that we're not going to adjudicate in public.
Yeah.
Which is where Baldoni's team is thriving, is like they're in court every day in all social media. Like they're on the court of social media and they're winning in that sense. But regardless of who wins and who loses, I think both of them lose to a degree at this point, because Blake Lively, there is such a stain on her name.
Mm-hmm.
And people talk about the It Ends With Us sequel. Who would pay to watch a sequel of this movie at this point? There's no way.
Yeah.
Unless you fast forward like 30 years or something. I just feel like it is so tainted, this property, that I don't understand that would be desirable for Blake Lively to do all of this to get a property that is worth nothing at this point, because you're just going to be thinking about Blake Lively.
Right. And I think that's a lot of what this is about, is trying to make him look bad because he's got the rights to the next movie. And so if we make him look bad, then he has broken his morality clause by sexually harassing her. So then they can come in and scoop it up and do the sequel. But who's going to watch the sequel if it's not the same two people? So now we're going to recast each of these characters. If either one of them who redoes it, they're going to recast. And then does it make sense? Because now we're recasting, but it's supposed to be about, the sequel's supposed to be about the co-parenting of this child when he's been abusive to her and they're divorced or whatever. So, by the way, I didn't even watch the movie, but I feel like I know the whole thing. It's just like the Kardashians.
I watched it just because of this case. And
Right.
I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm not the target audience, but I didn't love it. I was like, okay, well, no, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. Like I was just like somewhere in between with it. And I thought like, okay, well, this isn't The Godfather. Like we're doing all of this, and it's not even like Titanic. It's not the #1 film that's ever come out in the world. You're risking your career and your husband's career to take over a movie, and this is the movie, when it's like, if this turns out to be true and she did all of this, you risk your entire career. You would have been, if you had just been quiet and not done any of this, Blake Lively would have been able to direct her next project, because this movie was a hit. It made more money than they thought it would. And that's what you want in Hollywood. It gives you more power. So I just keep thinking, why do this to yourself if you don't believe this to be true. Because if it does, if they're able to prove that she did this and it truly was planned out, then that's really, really dark and damaging for her and her husband,
Yeah.
who is also just, I mean, he's at the top of his game career wise.
Yeah.
Whether you like Deadpool and Wolverine or not, it doesn't matter. It was successful. I just, I don't know, man. It's really hard because one of these people are completely in the wrong. There are always shades of gray. But it's really dark to think that she did this on purpose to take over this film, but in essence, destroy this man completely.
Mm-hmm. And then the opposite, when I think about when we first heard it all and we were all like Team Blake, I think like, okay, what if our first, understanding of this was true and all this stuff, Justin Baldoni, that like you're saying, Blake's going to come back with a point counterpoint for everything he's saying.
Yeah,
And what if all this time we're like, oh wow, we should have always believed Blake. All this
exactly.
did happen.
That's
And then
why
you're like,
there's
yeah,
this
yeah,
team, this and that. Like, I'm a grown man. I'm not team anybody. Like, I'm team. Let's, I guess, find out the next thing. But I have read every court filing, and I will, like, I'm honest about it. Of like, wow, if this all proves to be true, yeah, this is damaging. Even then, if Blake's filing, she's in the right, it has still been damaging to Blake's career because there has been such a focus put on to how she markets a movie, how she speaks about collaboration, and you can see from those emails. I mean, it's eye opening. And I did a 4-hour episode on this. If you are curious about any of those emails,
okay,
well,
yes,
because Mary Payne, I didn't want to make it like I didn't want to talk about this every day on my show. I wanted it to be silly with Beverly Hills and Salt Lake recap. Yeah, so I'll just do one big episode and I'll do another one like probably next week to update on all the recent things. But
okay,
the emails are really eye-opening in the sense of, she really wanted to like write scenes and collaborate. I mean, you really sense that. But guys, that's not a crime. Like, people are on these films and in life, they want to collaborate and they want to push themselves like, oh, I want to do more and more and more. And at some point, Justin Baldoni never had a conversation with her, it seems, where it's like, you're the actor, I'm the director,
right,
and the actor, but like, you got to go by what I say. And it seems like just from reading that, maybe he not blurred the lines, but there was never a firm foot planted down, and he almost tried to placate her so much that she just kept wanting more. That's just, I mean, but that's just like reading these documents. It kind of seems this pattern of behavior at him just being so syrupy, sweet, nice. And that could just be who he is as a person. But everything was like, I totally understand. And you're going to kill this part. You're amazing. Like, but in Hollywood, everybody kisses each other's ass. So that part isn't a crime either.
Yeah. Okay, guys, go to So Bad It's Good and listen to maybe I'll listen, but I'll have to listen on 1.5 speeds because 4 hours is a long time.
Listen at 2 speed, like, but times 2. Like, it is. Even I said it multiple times throughout. This is ridiculous. I understand this is ridiculous, but it's like OCD at that point where I've like, I got to get through this. So
and you got to look at everything.
Well, because I don't want to have to do it again because I did 3 episodes in December and then I had sinus surgery and then I was like, it's not fair to not do Justin Baldoni's side,
How's that sinus surgery? I've had sinus surgery before. How did it go?
It really started the January off in a weird way, and then the fires happened. And
sure.
It was a really tough re-entry to the year, and it's good. I'm going out for my final nose cleaning next week. They do, remember it is, it's wild. But I am able to breathe out of both nostrils for like the first time in my life. But it's still healing.
It's crazy when they would do those nose clean. You have to go back in and they have to like clean out some gunk. They would have. I'd have to go to the hospital and they put me to sleep for it.
Really?
Because I can't. I couldn't handle it.
Oh, I've been awake and they show it on the video and like they have the video and like the things, guys, it's like gummy worms are coming out of your nose. It's insane. It's almost impressive, but also gross.
But for me, it's the pain level and the putting something that far up my nasal cavity. I couldn't take it.
I'm in your forehead right now. He's like, I'm in your forehead right now with this machine. I'm like, what?
I couldn't take it. So the first time I went in the office and it's called like debridement or something. And you go in there and they tried to do it. And within the first second, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this.
Really?
I'm not going to be able to. And you have to do it like 3 times.
Yeah. And I've done it 2 times. Next week's my 3rd time. Yeah.
Each time I went to the hospital, they put me under for those like 10 minutes. Because I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. There's not enough Xanax in the world that's going to knock me out.
But that shows the difference between me and you. You know your limits and you're vocal about it. Me, I'm just like, yeah, I'll just put up with whatever. What you want to put a steel
No.
rod up to my forehead? Go for it. You know?
No, not this girl. Not this girl. All right, let's talk about Beverly Hills. So last week we had an amazing episode of Beverly Hills. Really,
Yes.
because we sort of had the two events. We had the going to Augusta, and then we had the dinner at Kathy
Yeah.
Hilton's, which was just firing on all cylinders just with those four cast members. It was great. Really good. Now, this week I was like, well, they can't top it. Well, they did. And
You think this episode topped last week's episode?
I think it was equally as good.
I think it was good in a different way. I
Yes.
think this is like a 43-minute therapy session.
It was dark. And I just want to tell you, being from the Deep South, I literally know all these people. I know, not know, but I know a Sutton. I know a Reba. I know a John T. Literally, I know 3 people named John T, a couple named John B. And when I tell you, it is so familiar to me, this tamping down of the feelings and
Yeah.
not telling somebody you love them and just like, well, you should just know. And the whole perfectionism of Sutton and her mother, and the whole like the dad killed himself while the mom was in the kitchen, but they just don't talk about it. I mean,
It's wild. It's like a Tennessee Williams play, and and Reba is a therapist.
wow.
I mean, like that, like talk about like I was like, I need to talk to some of Reba's clients, like
Right.
like how they're doing in life, because I was like,
Right.
no way. But you can totally see why Sutton is the way she is, but also almost be not forgiving, but also be like, wow, you've seen her. You can see her try to break those familial ties,
Yeah.
like trying to be better, but at the same time you've seen so much repeated behavior from a parent that you
Yeah.
can't help but emulate it. It's just part of you. So
Yeah.
that part was really, really interesting to me. And I'm, obviously she's going to be back on the season because she agrees to come to the fashion show
I
for
know.
Sutton at the end of the episode.
That was really great. And for me, her mom is not scary at all. And so Sutton is not like scared of her mom, but you could tell that Garcelle and Kyle are like on their P's and Q's trying so hard because they're scared of her. And every single time Reba says anything, they're like, shh, with the sound effect. And I'm like, you guys,
No,
it's not that bad.
I'm scared of her, and I'm like just watching from a TV screen. I was like completely. I mean, Garcelle having to go in there and be like, "You need to be nicer to Sutton." Like, mind your business. Like, I was like, "Whoa." It was so. Yeah, I liked it, but it was like the TV shows back in the 80s. Like I remember the show Family Ties.
Love
and they
Family
would have,
Ties. Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
No,
Michael
not
Keaton.
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox, yeah.
Sorry.
They had this episode, I think, where they went to like Paris or something like that. It was
Ooh.
like, it's like those kind of episodes where it breaks up. Like it's not all in Beverly Hills. We're in Augusta, Georgia. And it was
Right.
almost a full Sutton and her mother episode. I mean, you had the Erica Jane Dorit and you had the Beau's relationship storyline, but the majority, I believe, was Sutton and her mom. So it felt like this really kind of weird vacation from Beverly Hills.
I loved it. And I think I just whenever anything is done in the Deep South like that, I'm like, these are my people. I love the accents.
You
I
could
love
feel the
everything about it.
humidity. You could feel the humidity jumping off of the screen. Like I was like, I can't believe sweet tea wasn't mentioned at some point.
It's
and
just,
did you see the huge bottle of vodka the mom with Reba was pouring out of? Like it was like the Costco kettle one. I was like,
of
wow.
course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Listen, you're never going to run out. And you did notice too, in the clear fridge, you had the big thing of the ocean spray, for Sutton, for her. Yeah. I was like, she never is without it. But I have to tell you that the whole thing about the father's depression and the self-medicating, he never went to therapy. She says his non-treatment was very disjointed. This went on from when Sutton was 25 to 32. And he killed himself December of 2022, of course, when she was on the show.
No, it wasn't 2022. Wasn't it 2002?
2002 makes a lot more sense because I was like, she wasn't 32 2 years ago.
No, 2002.
2002. And so to me, sort of hearing that her father had been sort of her rock and she was a daddy's girl her whole life. She's 25 and he starts to have this decline. And she's sort of, when you're 25, you're sort of like, oh, I'm just like, I'm doing life now. Like I'm out of college and I'm an adult. And that's a real hard time, I think, for her to be like feeling that pull to be back home to help. And I think it was very interesting, the timeline of it, and it was very interesting when they went back to the house, and of course, the people were so nice. "Of course you could come in, have fun." I was like, "Yeah, if somebody knocked on my parents' door and was like, 'Listen, I used to live here, and can I take a tour?' My parents were like, 'We'll just be on the lawn. You go right ahead.'" I mean, that's just how it is. All of it was just so familiar to me, and the whole sort of Southern Gothic storytelling of the father, it was
It
just
was
is so
very dark and deep,
dark.
and well, that's why I was like, I liked it, but it was very different than last week's episode, which I thought was really dynamic in all of
Mhm.
the ways, because you also had the Kathy Hilton scene with Dorit talking about PJ, aka PK,
PJ.
and the 7-page paper, like the paperwork,
Mhm.
and Erica Jane knowing exactly how to, knowing the ins and outs of divorce completely.
Yeah.
I thought it was so much dynamic, and this was a lot deeper. It was a lot more the family bonds that tie us down. And I thought, so I was kind of hoping for a more dynamic episode in terms of just the overall insanity. And this was like a study in family history. So it
I
was great. It was just a very different kind of great.
I agree with that. And how did you feel about, Garcelle was trying to talk to Reba, and I like, Reba said, "Well, I don't think it's any of your business." And Garcelle just says, "You're right. I didn't grow up. I didn't see your relationship growing up." But I thought Reba's point, being, "Are you the messenger?" And
Yeah. Yeah.
Garcelle said, "Maybe I am the messenger." And I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
that was very telling. And I felt like Reba was kind of rude to Garcelle about the scarf and everything.
Yeah.
But then I think after that, Garcelle kind of leveled the playing field a little bit,
Yeah,
you know?
Reba respected Garcelle more after that moment. And this was another moment where, they teased it in last week's episode, and I was like, oh, this is going to be fireworks. And then
Yeah.
it turned out to be like way more sane than I thought it would be. Like, it was way more, they both come to an understanding with each other,
Yeah.
and Reba realizing that her daughter is talking about their relationship to other people. And, that's what I'm saying. It's not the insane, like in normal Housewives shows, you would have that happen and you'd be like, get out of my property. You gotta leave right now. You will never stay in here again, Garcelle. Never. And we didn't get that. We got an actual conversation. But in normal Housewives, you would get that scene. And I
Yeah.
was kind of surprised that it didn't pop off.
Yeah. I was glad that it didn't. And I was glad that she was like, Reba made a great point. She was like, "You don't actually like know us all the way. You
Exactly.
only know Sutton as a divorced woman who lives in Beverly Hills. You
Yeah.
don't know her as the girl that grew up in Augusta and got married to this guy and was a New York socialite and all that." And I think that Sutton also trying to make the point of when she got divorced and her mom was only interested in like what Christian was doing. Well,
Yeah.
that's it doesn't matter that Reba has always been, a lady with a job in the South and all that. It doesn't matter. She's still conditioned to be like the man takes care of you. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how or what. So I thought that was super interesting about her being concerned about Sutton. First of all, that she was a stay-at-home mom. That was she was concerned about that because she's like, "Sutton, you need to have something. So if it goes south, listen, Sutton's got more money than any person you or I will ever meet times 10, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Sutton's doing just fine. She earned every dollar of that $330,000 a month. And by the way, Reba's
Gosh, can
also
you
doing just
imagine?
fine. She does have to
Yeah.
live in the servants' quarters, but she's doing just fine.
But those servants' quarters are amazing. Like, it looked cute. It looked colonial back there.
Better than most person's
Yeah,
actual
she's
home. She lives
she's
in the guest
fine.
house. Yeah, she's fine.
Yeah.
I just thought Garcelle's theory of, "I don't know why Reba's the way she is." And then she goes, "No, actually, I do know." And I thought it was
Yeah.
very interesting, Garcelle said, because Sutton and her dad were very close. And Reba never had that with probably either of her children because she's just very stoic the way she is. And she was
Yes.
jealous, you
Yeah.
know? And I
Yeah.
think
I totally made sense. And by the way, that's what's great, because we can actually relate that back to our own lives. Of, we all have kind of situations where it's like, oh yeah, this relationship, or this, just like we were talking about Craig and Paige's breakup. Sometimes we forget that we actually go through situations like this as well. They're
yeah,
usually just not on television, but it made perfect sense why their relationship is where it is, on top of Reba being this strong Southern woman that, like you said, is stoic and has never, probably always been, or been described as cold.
right.
and you can get like, if you get described that so much throughout your life, you almost become indignant about it, and also are just like, how dare you, like that it's just who I am. And so you lean into it even further, and so you almost become a caricature of what people describe you as. So I think she leans into it a little bit more. I was just happy that she even agreed to film, because if she truly was this monster, I think she would have been smart enough to not film at all.
I agree with that. Now, the thing that Sutton talked about when her dad killed himself, that the mom was like in the kitchen, and she says, and we saw the house, so we see where the kitchen is, we see where that room is that he built, that he loved, it was like man cave room. And she says, she knew he's on pills, she knows he's drinking, he's self-medicating, and she knows we have a loaded gun in the house, and she's just in the kitchen. So I think that Sutton said, maybe I do have a little pent up resentment, not maybe.
Probably. Yes.
It is so deep and so sad. And the fact that dad kills himself in the house, they continue to live there for a little bit of time. Mom, a therapist, never like talks to her children about it. Like, not only did her husband do this in the house, and so she's got to feel so much anger and hatred towards her husband for doing that in their house, then she's got the relationship with the children, and she never discusses it.
No,
Awful.
it's what no, but like my mom passed away like a year and a half ago or whatever. Struggled with cancer for years, and watching that whole process, like I'm still dealing with that to this point, And then my dad's still here and dealing with him and our relationship, and like there are so many interesting things that you're like, what we go through. We're all going through this like personal journey, and sometimes like I see my dad and his struggle with this huge loss in his life. And sometimes that will, take a backseat to this loss in my life.
Right.
And it's really hard, but that's life. That's life.
Because you and your dad are grieving different things.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. And we all don't make obviously the perfect decisions in life. Like, right? RHOBH didn't sit there and go, I've got to be strong for my kids, walk them through this, talk them through this, make sure that they are okay and still being able to live their lives. No, like it wasn't like that. We don't always do the exact right thing that people think we should, because you're just so busy trying to survive yourself.
And I think, and I will just speak from a Southern lady perspective, I think RHOBH was probably also embarrassed that because something like that happened, is like, because now everybody's going to be talking about you.
Yeah, and that's a Southern no-no?
Yeah, and
that's South? Yeah.
That's embarrassing, because now everybody's going to be gossiping about you, and everybody's going to be talking about you. And so I think, and also she's a therapist, and this happened in her house. I mean, so I think RHOBH probably has so much shame and embarrassment about her husband and his mental decline, that she was probably so wrapped up in that, and she's like, well, my children are grown, they can figure it out on their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it never occurred to her to like caretake with them, that their father,
well,
it was deep and dark, and I loved every minute.
Well, but see, but that's exactly it. Is that, Mary Payne? We went from memes and texts. Like the whole first season, like half of the season was Kyle and these memes and texts.
Yes.
And so you go from that to like deep family trauma about suicide. Like it is such a detour. That's why I thought this week's episode was so weird, like such a left turn in a way. Mm-hmm. Like I love how you're looking at it about all of these different levels, but I just imagine the casual Bravo viewer that's there to like see their like fights and the thing. They're like, wait, what the hell's going on? This is great. It's like the Kendrick Lamar performance. Like this has all of these levels to it, and people are out there just like, hey, are they going to play a song I know? Like that's it. It's like people like want to hear that song they know on Housewives, of like just the girls fighting between each other, and this has so many different levels to it. So I loved it, but so different.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just like when we learned about, Angie K's mother, drinking herself to death, or when we found about Mary Cosby's son. You can get into, and with Sutton, this is more like her backstory. And I don't know. I thought it was so interesting. So interesting.
Well, see, because, and the Mary Cosby thing is a perfect example of like, you're right. Like these shows, like especially Salt Lake, can go super insane in terms of their other storylines, because they'll have the Angie K and especially Mary Cosby to give it like weight, to like give it a foundation, and then you can go super crazy because you'll always be able to go back to this very real life event. But this is interesting because it's almost dealing like with we never got to see Mary Cosby and her mom on Salt Lake City, right? So we're getting so much of this mom Reba's backstory on top of Sutton. Like Reba is a fully fleshed out character by the end of this episode, and but yeah, that's a great example with Mary Cosby because of the Robert Jr. stuff. Yeah, I mean, yeah, God, that's a great, yeah, but that's what these shows can really work. I'm just excited to see next week's episode of what happens now.
Yeah, and it was interesting with, when Sutton goes, "I'll tell you how it goes," and Mom says, "Don't." Like, I don't wanna know. And that is just so I mean, I could just say that is something like my mom would say. I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Well, I'll tell you that." Mom goes, "I don't." My mom will just, "I don't wanna hear about that. I don't wanna know. I don't want you to tell me." I'm like, "You don't wanna know?" "No, I do not
I
wanna
am
know.
A-okay. I'm good.
I'm fine. I don't wanna know anything." Now we got, sort of the wrap up of that story was we can do better. And she said, "We can do better." Her mom's like, "We can be friends." Okay. She goes, "I don't want to stay in that child's room that's weird though with his."
Yeah, weird
Yeah.
Philip.
Yeah.
Weird, smelly
No.
Philip. Yeah.
Your children are weird, Sutton. So now Bose and Keeley, as a straight man, do you have thoughts on what's happening with Bose and Keeley that they are actively talking about having a baby? She's almost 50, and this man has never said "I love you" and doesn't even live in the same town.
Wait, first off, do not spread around that I'm straight. I do not want that getting out, please. It is very weird because they present as such this like really loving couple, like how they were first introduced and like finding love at a different age. And he seemed really into her, and they're talking about having a child, and they're going through all of this stuff. And then we just haven't had this, like, "I love you." Like, you're willing to have a child, but no, "I love you." Like, that's
She's talking to her
weird.
daughter about having another baby with this man, but they haven't said "I love you."
It's wild. And then we have that scene with Erica and Dorit where she's talking about that as well. But that's what I also love. And it kind of goes to what we've been talking about is that, so far Bose has been this reliable narrator type character where I'm like, oh, she might be too smart for this show. Like, she might be too well put together. And then you're like, okay, here it is. Like, there's a kink right here because we all have these little, like little weird things about ourselves or our relationships that people outside of it would never understand. But you're like, no, I mean, here, it makes sense to me. And this is like so interesting to see that out of Bose because finally it's like, yeah, that is a little weird, especially if you're thinking about bringing a child into this world. And you've not gotten to the "I love you" phase yet, like that's totally. But that's it. That I'm like, wow, welcome to Housewives, Bose. You're here.
She says, "I'm acting on the belief that Keeley," this is what she says, "I'm acting on the belief that Keeley loves me. So why not continue the conversation about marriage and baby while building up to the words?"
You would almost think you would build up to the baby after the words,
After
right?
the "I love you."
I'm not, like, Bose is way more successful than I'll ever be, but I would think that you would want to do the "I love you" part first and then the baby would come after. And maybe that's just a technicality. But I love also like I'm acting on the belief, like I believe in aliens. Like I'm acting on the belief that like there shouldn't be a word acting in talking about love and babies. Like I'm acting as, well, no, you don't want to act, just be how it is. And listen, they probably do love each other. We probably do get to see the "I love you" moment on camera.
It'll come.
So it'll come. But it is so funny because it is such a quirk that we haven't seen out of Bose yet. So I almost really, it endeared me to her because I was like, oh, good, you've got a little crazy in you.
Yeah. And it's interesting too when they sit down at the Grandmaster Recorder. So I looked at it. I was like, is this like Grandmaster Flash? And yes,
no. Oh,
it's an old recording studio for Grandmaster Records that they made into a restaurant.
Yeah, I've been there, but I didn't know it was actually anything to do with Grandmaster Flash. That's wild.
Grandmaster Flash, I just have to assume recorded at Grandmaster Records, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. But I'm saying it is a former recording studio for Grandmaster Records.
All right,
I looked it up because I was like, this looks cool.
You learned something today. Wow, I learned something today.
Yeah, next time you go, ask. They won't know. So anyway, I think that this lunch was interesting because they talk about the Keeley and the "I love you," and they're like, "Girl, what's wrong with you?" But then here after this, when Dorit starts talking about, "Oh, I had this wonderful conversation with PK," and they were all like, "Don't fall for it, dummy." And Bose gives such good advice here that you're like, okay, now Bose, look inward.
Yeah,
What would
exactly.
you say if your friend told you she's going to have a baby and marry
Yes.
someone who's never said they loved her?
But isn't that how it always is? We can
Yeah.
diagnose other people way more than we can ourselves. We can't
Yeah.
see our own issues half of the time, but you can see it so clearly for other people.
You're
Like
right.
that's so clearly. So, it totally made sense to me. And I love that. I love that Dorit has bows this season because obviously she's not getting what she needs from Kyle. And Erica Jane, has weirdly, I've liked her more this season than I've liked her, I think, maybe ever on her time on the show because I
Me
was
too.
never a huge Erica Jane fan.
Me too.
And it doesn't excuse any of but like just if we're judging by her interactions with
Her
people,
therapy is really working.
yeah, she
Yes.
seems just like she cares a little bit more, but it's still not enough. So Bose is that good person that really is getting in there and is Team Dorit. And obviously this comes to a head next week because Dorit has everybody over to her place and like explosions happen between Sutton and then Garcelle and Bose, I think, get into it over Sutton and Dorit.
Mm. Well, in this particular lunch, they are telling Dorit, they're like, he's gaslighting you. And she's like, no, this is my husband that I married. And Erica says, PK is ruthless. He's ruthless in business, so he's going to be ruthless in divorce. I'm shouting from the rooftops, take shelter, but no one's listening to me. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is interesting because Erica is coming at it from, I was married to a narcissist who's ruthless in business that will do anything to take you down. And that's what she learned from the best, right? And she's
Yeah.
trying, and Bose explains this really perfectly. Again, Bose, look inward. And Bose says, he's trying to calm you down. This is the art of war, so you don't act, so he can act. And Dorit's like, but what would be the advantage? I was like, oh, girl. Oh,
But also,
girl.
Erica Jane's a narcissist too. So I mean,
Oh,
like
I
it
know.
is so
Yeah.
so funny to hear but I don't know. I love. I'm just curious where PK and Dorit are at now, though, because
Yeah.
Dorit was on Watch What Happens Live at the season premiere, and Andy asked, and she's like, "No, we're still together." So I don't know, how does this go from he's a bad parent, he's done all of these things, to them still being together? So I'm curious
No,
where
they're not together. I mean, they're still
no, but
getting
they're
divorced.
not
They're getting along.
unless we just haven't found out about it, they're not divorced. So that would put it past the
Right.
10-year mark, which was the worry in last week's episode of trying to get, so you don't have to split all
He
of your
wouldn't be able to push
financials.
that shit through in 6 months if she's not a willing participant. There's no way. Like he could try, but he's not Tom Cruise. He can't make something go through that fast. He didn't have that money.
Well, Boy George has a lot of power, and he represents Boy George. So but also you have to remember, PK had a whole other marriage with other kids. Like like he's had a whole other life. So
Yeah.
he's more like what I got the sense of, which was really scary, and I could kind of then understand Dorit's real just shock, is that he really does seem kind of done with her. Of like, I'm off, like doesn't really seem to check in with her. That's wild. He seems like he just does not care and he's already done and over it. And I don't know how
Yeah.
you get back on any sort of track after you feel that way.
Well, she's just very much like, it's for the children, and they're like, that's great, but you have to do it for yourself. Like put your mask on yourself first before
Yeah.
you can help your kids. So you need to, get the situation.
But even little Jagger's coming in saying, mommy, I saw something on Instagram. Like he's
Right, of
hearing it at
course.
school. So how is this helping the kids at all? It's probably confusing the hell out of them.
Do you see PK's Instagram reels where he's constantly making videos of in
With
the
the
kitchen
kids
of him, how
dancing
fun,
around.
what a fun
Yeah.
dad he
Fun
is.
dad. Fun dad.
Fun dad. Just throw the Cheerios all over. It's fun dad. Fun dad.
Well, what's interesting too is that you never see, I was talking about this last week, is that you see all these housewives out there like promoting all their products or going on shows and stuff. And Dorit did like Watch What Happens Live. And I think she did like Alex Baskin's podcast. But other than that, she's kind of like, you don't really see her like out there as much as the other housewives.
I don't
Like,
ever watch that after show that they have. I'm sure you do.
well, no, the after show she's on, but I'm
She
talking
is,
about
okay.
just like in public. Like you'll see like paparazzi shots of Kyle and Garcelle and even Sutton and the rest of the cast. But Dorit seems like she has a relatively quiet or private life, which I know sounds bizarre and crazy, but I
does
just
sound
don't
weird.
see her out as much as the other housewives.
Maybe that's on purpose because
I kind of like it though. It's like the
they're-
JD Salinger of housewives.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're she's just gearing up for her next photo shoot, but they're explaining, and this, what you're saying could play into this, because they're saying to her, like, this is not a game. He's trying to run the bases on you. And Bose is like, what he's trying to do is calm you down so he can go around and scoop up all the lawyers. And of course, anybody that knows anybody that's been divorced is what you do is you just have a free 30-minute consultation with every single lawyer. And then when Dorit calls that lawyer, they can't hire that lawyer because that person had a 30-minute free conversation with PK about, so they know his side. So then this is a very common tactic. We had a friend here that kept trying to get like a good divorce lawyer, and her husband had literally called every single good divorce lawyer in our area to do the free 30-minute consultation. So then she could not get that lawyer. And so what they're saying to her is he's running game on you because he's keeping you calm. So he's calling up every good lawyer in town so you can't get one. And then Dorit goes, really? You think it's a game? And that Bo says, yeah, wake up. And I was like, oh my God, Bo's coming in hot. I liked it.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. This is what Dorit needs.
I liked it. Now, I will also point to a scene where Kyle calls Kathy. And it's like, oh, how was your dinner? Blah, blah, blah. And Kathy is just doing, the phone up the nose, phone on the floor. And she goes, hey, remember it's a FaceTime. Don't put the phone up to your ear. I loved that. So I was like, that shit is so funny.
Sometimes I feel like this is all an act with Kathy. Is that she's just doing this for bits. And she's so... there's something so comedic about it that I'm like, is this possibly true? Is she really this way? Or because she seems like you can't be where she is in life without being, weirdly smart. Yeah. But also she's also weirdly weird. And I love that and appreciate it. But is it a little bit of an act that she puts on? And I don't mean just on this show, but in life, because she'll go on talk shows and it'll be that she'll always say something just completely bizarre and really funny and act like I didn't know that. I didn't know what I was saying. Mm-hmm. Remember when on Watch What Happens Live that time, and she thought they showed a picture of Lizzo and she thought it was Precious. And then she was like, who was she on with? It was because she was on with me was Crystal, and she in the moment was like, oh my God. It was like, no. It was so dark. And I was like, how did somebody do this?
Yeah. That I think she literally did not know. But a lot of the stuff she does, I think, is she's leaning into, everybody thinks it's better than them thinking I'm homophobic and racist and screaming things at Lisa Rinna. That wasn't great. So I need to lean into the hunky-dory aspect of my personality. So that's why.
But also, we were just talking about mother-daughter relationships. It would also then kind of make it more plausible that Paris Hilton put on an act for the first part of her career with the baby doll voice. And
it's totally,
and then now Paris has a baritone voice when she talks. And so maybe she learned aspects of that from her mom.
Who learned it from Big Kathy,
Big Kathy. That's going to be that needs to be a docuseries someday.
Can somebody we know just get on it? I keep telling Kate Casey, I'm like, can you please try it? She's like, I don't have time.
It's right there. It's right there for the taking. You could include the Hiltons if you want, but the Richards have such a rich history with Big Kath and what they went through that I don't think anybody realizes. Yeah.
No. And speaking of that, one time Kyle said, don't ever put your handbag on the floor. It's purse on the floor, money out the door. She said that was her mom's theory, that if you put your purse on the floor, it was an old wives' tale that meant money would go out the door. Now, in this episode, I noticed when Kyle is talking to Kathy on the FaceTime, and she's talking about, Mo and Portia are going on a meditation, and then they're going to Ibiza to do cocaine. It was I was like, what? And they're kind of talking about that. Kyle behind her, I am a handbag nerd, and I noticed Kyle's handbag behind her. So I quickly did a quick Google on it, and it's a $22,000 handbag sitting on the table, not on the floor, sitting on the table behind her. There's a green ostrich Birkin. $22,000.
That's.
Can you imagine?
I know. I can't. I really can't imagine.
I can't imagine. I think that's what you should get for your girlfriend for her next birthday. You're like, look, I know you've been eyeballing this green ostrich.
I just don't know if you could ever. I was raised so middle class that I just we grew up shopping at Walmart and Ross's and TJ Maxx's that I just. Even if I had the money, I don't think I will ever be able to spend it like that. I mean, unless you're just, I guess, stupid wealthy. But how would you ever? No offense to anybody listening to that. I know it's something to
Nobody here listens that has a $20,000 handbag, okay?
Well, you never know.
Well, that's
know,
right. I
like,
never know.
yeah,
That's right.
you
That's
never
right.
know. But I just find like I would feel so guilty, and but it's not even that. Kyle's wearing $20,000 sunglasses. She's wearing like she has all of the accoutrement. Like she's always carrying something new, something designer, and at the same time, look at it. She, her marriage is in shambles. She feels very lonely, or at least that's what the show sets it up as. So all of these little baubles are trying to replace, her family in some ways.
The purse did not bring her happiness.
How could it?
Yeah. Well, it's really pretty, but it's green, and I didn't like that. So, and an ostrich had to die to make it, so that wasn't great. Maybe the ostrich is already dead. Maybe an ostrich is already dead. Oh my God! Now, quick question: did you watch Sold on SLC?
I did not. I know you guys covered that,
and so good.
Dude, there's like a billion shows out there right now, because
I know
if Sold on SLC gets a second season, I'll go watch the first season. But like we are literally, and it's just getting crazier and crazier. We got so many new shows coming out, so many old. Like there's just so much television that inundates us right now that it looks good, like it looked fine, like it looked. And if you covered it, it must be good. But I just couldn't add another show on top of, because then I'll try to watch I didn't watch The Last Resort in 90 Day, but I watched before the 90 days. Yeah. And, I watched my Love After Lockups and my, it's too much to add Sold on SLC to it at this point.
So you watched before the 90 days, but you're not watching Last Resort.
No, it was like a game time decision, and I couldn't pick up another. I felt, by the end of before the 90 days, I was like, what am I even doing here? I can't.
Yeah, it's a 2-hour show, and it's a heavy lift.
I can't do that. And I just felt so dirty by the end, and I was like, I just can't do this to myself.
But okay, but 90 Day Last Resort is really good.
I hear it's really good.
It's really
good.
I
picked the wrong show of the 90 days to watch.
You did. Now we have 90 Day OG coming back. That'll start this coming Sunday, and of course, we'll be covering it. And right now on Love After Lockup, they're doing a crime story, which they're doing the crimes. And
I loved
it?
This past week's episode, actually.
You did?
Because I was kind of bummed, because like I hate when there's not an actual like Love After Lockup or Love During Lockup.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is this? And then I watched it, and I kind of got into it. Like it was something, at least. It was a
change of pace for sure.
It was more well done than I thought it would be. It was actually, I was like, oh, this is better than I thought it would be. And I was kind of interested in both of their stories and how insane it was. And I was like, oh, I will definitely keep checking this out on Friday nights. By the way, that's usually the end of my week. So I look forward to that so much. We watch it. I don't have to cover it on the show. And I just truly, I enjoy it.
Yeah, I feel the same way about things like, White Lotus and Traitors and, things like that. I'm like, I'm not going to cover it. I will go on Kimberly and Katie on Friday nights, do just sort of like a Traitors live thing on YouTube or whatever. And I'll go on just to talk about it. But it's so nice. I haven't taken a note. I just get to like chat about it.
Oh,
it feels so good.
It's the best. It's like how we used to watch TV before taking notes and having to pay attention. And I'm like, those are those shows like you almost have more of an affinity to, because you can just relax and be like stupid and just be like, oh my God, this is crazy.
Yeah. Ryan and I were talking right before we started about podcasters, and the kind of a similar issue that we all have is that we all were told our whole lives, you talk too much, and that's like a bad thing. It's a bad thing to talk too much. And so we do, and we talk too much. So then we leave every conversation with a deep sense of dread that we talked too much or embarrassed ourselves or said too much. I leave every social interaction, even with its like good friends, I leave going, oh my God, they hate me. I talk too much. I bug everybody.
The negative voices run through my head. And then I was telling Mary Payne, I said, I do a lot of solo episodes. So you're used to like talking a lot. You're, filling in all of that space and all that. And so then when you do talk to somebody, you're just so excited to talk to another person that you're then talking. You're like, oh my God, I got something to add too. Like you're just so excited to be talking to another person instead of doing it by yourself. And I just, you can never win in podcasting. Like you can just never win, because you will always, you're always going to talk too much for one person. You're not going to talk enough for another person.
Yeah.
You're going to like, oh, you went too far with this, or you didn't go far enough, or your voices aren't funny, or this or that. It's like a breeding ground for some kind of negativity. And so you just kind of have to like push through that and just hope that it all works out.
I tell you, I don't know if you get this in your life. So if you're just in your everyday life talking to like one of your just like regular
Yeah.
friends and you just go to lunch or whatever, and they say something like, "Oh my God, did you see Salt Lake City last week? Like that reunion?" And you're just like, "Oh my God, please don't make me talk about this."
Oh my God. Yes. Oh my
And they
God.
want to talk
Sometimes,
about it because
oh,
they're like
sometimes,
they want to talk to
yes.
you about it because we both
Yeah.
watched it. And I'm
Yes.
like, "Do I
Dude,
want
sometimes
to?"
that'll happen. It'll be like, time to make the donuts. Like you'll be like, and that used to be like before all of this, that used to be the most fun conversations when I didn't
Yeah.
do this. And now you're just like, oh, I would love to talk to about anything other than Salt Lake City, even though I
Yeah.
love it. Or they'll like, oh, hey, walk me through this Paige and Craig thing. I'm like, walk
Yes.
yourself through this Paige and Craig thing. Like I've already dealt with it all week on this show. Like, or somebody, my buddy texts me, hey, real quick in 7 words, sum up the Baldoni Lively thing. And I was like, I can't. I don't want to do that. Like,
You're like, "I couldn't do it in 700." What do you mean 7?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. So every so often, like my sister will be like, I just started watching Southern Charm. Now, what is the deal with Thomas Ravenel? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
nope,
Well,
no,
I don't have the time.
no.
Watch the show.
Watch the show. You'll figure it out. I'm like, no, I can't. I know. No. And she'll go like, do we still like, somebody that was on the show? And I'm like, oh my God, they haven't been on in 6 seasons. I totally forgot about that crazy pants. Like, no, I don't know. I'm like, get caught up. Oh my God. It's like,
That's what
they're
you
like,
guys out there listen. That's what you have us for. You don't have to ask anybody anything about these shows. Hopefully, you don't
you
even have
just
to watch them.
listen.
You can just listen. Yeah.
Listen. Do you get that a lot? I get that a lot. People go, I haven't watched Love After Lockup in 2 years, but I just listened to your recaps. I'm like, really?
Though that blows me away too. Or when
Yeah.
people are like, I don't watch the show at all. I just listen. I'm like, what? How could you wait?
Yeah. How
What?
can you
Like that?
follow it?
That blows me away, and I don't even like that. Really does blow me away. Like
Yeah.
I can't
It's like
imagine it.
I never watched The Bachelor or Sister Wives or Keeping Up with the Kardashians, but I'll be listening to a podcast and maybe at the beginning they'll be like, "Okay, here's what happened this week on the Kardashians or Sister Wives or Bachelor." And I'm like, "Well, now I know everything." So I guess I do the same thing but in snippets. I wouldn't listen
Yeah,
to an hour and a half recap of a show that I had not visually watched. But people
yeah,
do.
no. Well, listen, my girlfriend listens to reality gays all the time. Like like unbeknownst to me, she was like a huge fan of theirs and doesn't watch all of those shows. She
Oh,
just loves listening to them. Like she just will love and I'll hear their voices all the time, just randomly,
yeah.
and I'll be like, oh wow, it's. But I know she doesn't watch all those shows.
I loved meeting your girlfriend, speaking of. I didn't know if we're allowed to speak of her,
Oh
but
yeah,
I
yeah,
but I loved meeting her. She's great. She, was very excited that I was a deadhead, so yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yes, she's a deadhead. Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
I love that. So, Ryan is also going to some dead shows, guys. We're not going the same weekend. I'm trying to get, Brandy and Julie were saying that they wanna come, like, with me because
Oh,
I
that'd be
know yeah,
hysterical.
yeah, so they're like, "We might come and just, like, sit 2 rows ahead of you." I go,
Oh
"Okay."
my God, I would love to hear what they have to
I'm
say
like, "Okay."
about a dead show. And I would be
Yeah.
so scared they would just be making fun of people in the audience.
No, they were really when we went the first time to the Sphere, they were very into my videos and stuff, and they were just like, keep sending the videos." They're like, "We wanna experience it because I was like, "Okay." So they say they're
Yeah.
gonna come, so we will see. They'll be, like, hanging out with me and my husband and my 2 kids, so, I mean, good luck. Good luck.
It's all about family with the dead. So that's
It's
good.
all about Oh, that is hilarious. All right, well, what else is coming up on your show? You've been killing it. You get a lot of great
Well,
interviews, and so
y-
what else what are you
well,
covering over
literally,
there?
3 minutes from now, I get on with Jason Waller. Remember him from The Hills and
Ooh,
Laguna
mhm.
Beach and all that stuff. So we're doing a little bit of a flashback to The Hills. So he's coming up. What else do we have? We have tons. We have. I talked to Abby Lee Miller last week. She's coming
Stop.
up from
That's
Dance Moms.
crazy.
We got along. She was a hoot. She was so funny. Who did I talked to these two there's a new show on Hulu, Muslim Matchmaker, which I actually thought
Yeah.
was really interesting. I talked to the two matchmakers. I talked to Brian Moylan this week. Watch What
Love,
Crappens, guys.
love.
We always have some do a Traitors recap with Bergie from the second season of the Traitors every weekend. And
Cool,
it is,
Burgerlicious.
yeah, Bergalicious. He's
Yeah.
amazing. And we get really into the gameplay element of it. So we do that every weekend, but there's always something and there's a lot. So just pick and choose what seems interesting to you. Like
Yeah.
it's not one of those things where you've got to but just whatever piques your interest because we've been doing shows on like Fall of Diddy. They had a 4-part docuseries. We had the
Mm.
directors on. That was a very intense episode.
Ryan, we almost got through this whole episode without talking about Diddy.
Oh God.
Damn
Well,
it.
sorry to ruin the miracle, but yeah, no, it kind of vacillates wildly from like really intense conversations to like really silly. And that's why I think the recaps I do solo are so insane, because
They are.
it's like, let it rip, like I can be just stupid and silly after talking about Lively and Baldoni for 4 hours.
Yeah, you guys. Ryan is great. He has a great podcast. And like he says, there's so many things there that if you not into the Traitors,
Yeah.
but you're into Housewives, if you're not into Housewives, but you're into Puff
I
Daddy. Yeah.
I really am loving the Traitors ones.
So
That's like
good.
one I look
So
for.
good.
It doesn't even feel like work when
Yeah.
I'm recapping it with Bergie, because it's like two geeks talking about
Yeah.
gameplay, and it almost like I forget that element of just loving competition reality series.
I love that.
It's fun.
Okay. Everybody follow Ryan. He has a hilarious Instagram. He promises he's going to get his sense of humor
Yeah,
back, and
I've
he's
lost
going to
my
bring
sense
it
of
back.
humor a little bit. Sorry, guys.
He's
Yeah.
bringing back the funny, and it's so bad it's good with Ryan Bailey. That's the podcast. That's the name of the Instagram. I think you're on TikTok and all the places.
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
places, just follow, and I appreciate anybody checking it out. And yeah, that's it. And I think we've got some announcements coming up together. So
We do. We
Well,
do.
yeah, so we'll tease that out at some. I don't know
We're getting married.
I don't. Yeah,
That's it.
I don't even know what part of the year we're in, but I think we have stuff coming up. So you'll probably hear about that at some point.
And I'm going to be on your show in a couple of weeks. So
Yes.
maybe
yes.
by then we'll have more details, but probably not.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.